Hello, welcome to a new video, a little bit different again. So this is about my grip obsession. I'm making this video. I will probably publish it because I don't see the harm in it, but I won't be posting it all over social media because I kind of promised to stop doing this because I have kind of an obsession with grips, basically pinky grips, so adding a little bit of space to your camera so that your pinky does not fall off the camera. So about 2 years ago I started designing one, no, about 4 years ago. We made one for the Sony a1, and we kind of designed that and I worked a little bit, helped tiny bit with Small-Rig to make a bracket for that one. But I also, I think about 2 years ago, when the when the a1ii came out, I started designing one using my 3D printer. Is something I started doing, and yeah, I've been using that one for about a year. It works fine, but I figured let's make a new one, and that's the one that we are now seeing. I will probably send this to Small-Rig. I don't think they will ever make it because the market is too small. Yeah, sadly for us, the Sony a1ii and the a9iii have a different body than the Sony a7 IV. And that means that the numbers are not probably big enough for them to yeah, make a specialty thing that I'm doing here. What I wanted is a much more integrated sort of grip, and I don't want to have an L bracket. I just want to have the camera a tiny bit bigger so that my hands fit better. So this is what we got. I am more than willing to share this, but I have my doubts that it's easy for people to 3D print, and so I'm kind of in the middle of what I will do now. So I will probably first send out a few test versions to friends, which I will build myself with all the parts that are needed for it, and see what the feedback is on that one. So let's get going, and I will try to explain in this probably long video again, but like I said, there's only a few people who will probably watch it, what I've been doing and why. So let me first turn it around. Of course, I'm not sure how this will look on the video because it's basically a black thing with a black grip and it's always difficult to see. So I upped the light on the camera a tiny bit so it looks a little bit more dark in real life than it is here. So you can see that the grip is already attached, and we have it on the tripod. And let me first turn it around slowly so that you can kind of see it before we talk about the features that we built in. Sorry for my breathing, I'm a bit under the weather. Hopefully that's not too irritating. Of course, an important part is this grip part, which we worked on, and to try and make it look like it's part of the camera, and it feels like part of the camera. So this is basically the design. It's now of course on my a1ii, and it's using quite a normal lens for at least this class of camera. It has a G Master 24-70 on there, and yeah, let me first show you some features. I integrated this in this time a smaller Arca plate, so that it's easy. In this case we are using a tripod from Peak Design, so if I lock it up and I unlock it, you see that it's easy to remove, and it should be quite easy to attach. A nice thing about this tripod is that it has a locking mechanism, and you can unlock it. I would pre-lock it myself, but you can see it's quite easy to clip in. It should be quite easy to clip in. It really depends a little bit how yours. Oh, sorry, it was not opened. My fault. So open it, lock it, and then you should see it should fall in quite easily. And the nice thing about this tripod is quite yeah, locked already the moment that you put it in. Again, we are talking randomly about small details. You will see that there are two small holes here because there are two locking pins over here, one over here and over here, and we designed that in so that it's still locked. So even if it would be unlocked like this, you can see that it's not easy to come off. And this is, in this case, this tripod is quite nice in that it has like multiple locking mechanisms. So if I unlock it and I put this lock over here, this kind of a safety lock, and I put it in, it sort of clicks in, as you can see, and it should automatically already be locked because of this small lock. And you can see even without me really closing it up, so it was like this, it is already quite sturdy. So it's one of the nice things about this tripod. So yeah, features. The most important feature, so while I take away this tripod, because we have shown that, one of the most important features, of course, is that it fits the hand really nicely. I have to move back a little bit, but you can see that the undergrip, let me show it like this, is quite nice. It feels really nice and comfortable. So let me put this tripod away. Again, this video will be messy, and I'm sorry for that. But that's what it is. So here we are again, and you can see that it's resting quite nicely in my palm here. And another important detail that we have put in is you can see, and if I rotate it, it has like this weird sort of flattened part. It's not even rounded, it's sort of a flat triangle. And why I did this is that if you put your hand down, you can already see it, that it's resting in my palm. So if I use the camera the way that I normally hold it, you can see that this is sort of catching my palm. So it's really comfortable in holding it. And you will also see, if you close up, that even though this model doesn't have the leather sort of pattern which I used on the old one with tape, this is actually using a 3D printed sort of structure, which hopefully you can see. Over there, yeah, you can see it, hopefully it focuses quite nicely. And it's not the same as the leather pattern, but I would argue from about 50 centimeters it's impossible to see the difference. And the material that's being used here is also yeah, helps in that it feels really nice. So yeah, another feature. Then what you're not seeing, let me show the bottom part. Of course you can see that it's totally closed up, and I will open it up later. But you see the Arca plate which is integrated, which is quite a cheap one. So it's basically a Peak Design one, but not from Peak Design. This is from Newer, and it costs about 8 or 9 euros because it's a little bit deeper, so that this screw which I use here actually fits, otherwise it does not work. So it's both cheaper than the official Peak Design, and it's also in this case a little bit better, keeping the price down. You can see that there's also a Peak Design plug over here, so that you can take it out, and let me do that. Like I said, I will go a bit random, but the idea is that you can sort of, let me move it back in the camera. You can hold it like this when you want to have it on the side of your body, and we put a place there so that you can put it back, and it works. Now what you don't see is that, as we will show it when I show the other, the open model, that there's an AirTag in there for tracking. So it also has that inside. Another important part, you can see this little ridge which protects the LCD from the down angle. So normally it would stick out, and I don't like that about the new screen. I love the new screen, so the 4 flippy screen. I don't like the fact that it's easier to hit from the bottom. So I made this small ridge here, so if you hit it from the bottom, it's actually protected. Now the downside is that you can't move it quite easily, like, so you can still move it up like this. Let me flip the screen out, so like this, right? So you can't really flip it like this anymore, but if you take it out a tiny bit, then it still works. So I think the downside for that is so small. To begin with, it's more likely that you use it like this, right? Then you're using it the other way around. But if you want to use the other way around, it's still possible. You just have to flip it out a tiny bit. I think that's a plus and not a negative, so that's why I did it. And these days I mostly use the EVF, so I actually leave the screen closed up. So that's why this ridge is there. Now, of course, you can see the two holes I was talking about for the pins on the tripod. So I think this is all. So the material that we are using is TPU, which is 3D printed. Now, normally you would use something which is called PLA, which is what most people will be using, but it kind of can melt about above 50 degrees Celsius. And if you're in the sun, that might be a problem. So actually you're using a really hard TPU, and TPU is the same stuff that's being used for things like your iPhone case, the rubbery stuff that's on your iPhone case, for example, or many of them. This is a version of TPU, but it's really tough. So that means that it feels a tiny bit rubbery, but just slightly, and it's still very sturdy. It's actually more sturdy than PLA, so it's very well protected against falls. But the most important thing, it does not have heat resistance. Is more into the 85 degrees range instead of the 55 degrees range. So it's much more, more resistant against sunlight. So that's why I used it. Again, it feels really comfortable when you're holding it, which was one of the main reasons I started making it. So let me open it up for a second so that you can see how that works to replace the battery. You can see that I can lock this out, this small little lock, and then I can just take this off and open up the battery door and close it up again. Then slide the part back. Of course, I'm now standing a tiny bit unhandy, but you can see it's quite easy to lock it back in. Then slide it back. This is now of course closed, which I really liked. And also this feels quite sturdy. So that's basically what I can show from the grip here. Again, I think it looks really nice. And it works really well. So let me show you an open model. So let me place this camera away for a second into a safe spot. And get another model which we have over here. So the same thing, but now not attached. So let me show the different parts. So this was the small arca plate I was talking about. It needs a special screw. I will show you on this one because this is the original screw on it. So this is a newer part, and I think, I forgot the price, but I think it was like 15 euros for two of them. So they're about 7 or 8 euros. And we also need a longer screw. So if you look at this screw, hopefully it will focus. If you look at this screw, it's just too short. Now again, the two different parts, so I can open it up like this and take it off again and put it back on and slide it back in. This is of course the place where the arca plate goes, and if I put it on, you can see the problem with if you use the original screw, is just not long enough. So you need a special screw for that, which is, I think it was 18 millimeters, and that's quite an important thing, because if it's smaller then it does not work. Now on the inside we see the place for the AirTag, for the Apple AirTag, which is of course not in there, it's in the real camera. You can see that there's a little bit of rubbery stuff here, so these ridges, so that it can't move easily, which is nice. And you should see the small edge over here and over here, so that it really fits the camera. Now on this one you can see that I put a plug in here. So if you don't want to use the Peak Design plug, I kind of also made the material there, so that if you don't want to use this Peak Design solution plug, you can actually put this little plug in. So you can take it out like this. Now it's not there anymore. And you can see that you can use the Peak Design plug. You can just plug it back in like this and attach it again before you screw it on the camera. So let me think if I want to say anything more about this solution. In concept it's quite easy to 3D print. The weight is totally solid, so normally you might 3D print it with an internal hollow area. I did not do it. I actually made it fully solid, so that this material is so really tough, but it's also rubbery, if that makes sense. So my gut feeling is that is actually safer than a real L bracket or a cage, because if it falls, like I said, it's basically rubbery on the camera side, and I think this will take the shock quite well. I don't think there's any danger in the damage of the camera. The only place where there might be damage if you use the screw, oh no, small part fell. If you use this screw, then theoretically I could see that the screw might, if it get a hit on the screw, it might damage the screw part of your camera. Now that can be quite easily be replaced compared to all the other parts, because if you drop it normally it will either damage your camera way more, but even if you have a cage on there, I suspect that the damage of the aluminium sort of transferring the hit to the camera will give more damage than this solution will do. So I think that's good news. Of course it's not an L bracket, so this part, yeah, there's clearly a difference. If you like an L bracket and I have nothing against it, this will, yeah, you need to get that. This won't be the solution for you. And like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to share this and in what context I will share it. So let me get the camera again, just for some end demos. Let me hold it like this. I can't really see if I have it correctly into the picture, but you can see me sort of holding it one more time. You can see the grip part. Let me try to also show the front part. And you can see, in this case, my fingers, how they sort of line up with the grip. And my problem is that this, my pinky, normally would fall off, and now it does not anymore. So how high is it? Just to give you an idea, of course, all the different cameras have different grip sizes. And I do not want Sony to make bigger cameras. I really don't. But I do think it makes sense for some people to have an extender, I'm calling this an extender, or an L bracket, or use a full grip, which is 47 millimeters. This is about 18 millimeters. So is this a weird height? No, this is actually the same height now as, for example, a Nikon Z8. So it's not that weird ever of a grip size for people with bigger hands, and I think that's also why it makes sense for me, because I have quite big hands. So this is about it, I guess. So I will only send this video to a few people to give them an idea about my new solution and what I'm going to be using myself this year. So thank you for watching, and if you're really interested, let me know in the comments. Like I said, I'm considering making about 10 of them and sending them to people against cost price, which will be probably about, combined with sending it over, maybe about $40 or something like that. I'm not going to sell it, but I'm considering sending a few out just to get some feedback. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.